hello everybody, we have the 19th Berlin Real Estate. Here is February 2021, Berlin, Germany. Our guest speaker today is Ms. Nancy Yuan. Hello, Nancy.
Hello.
Nancy, she's now working for over 5 years for Black Label Properties, and she's the director for Asia. So not only selling to Chinese investors and people who are living here in Germany with Asian background. We will talk tonight about the reasons why it is so important for you as a seller to offer your property in Asia and of course China, and also how it works selling to Chinese people. So maybe you can please introduce yourself. So where you're from initially, Nancy?
I'm Nancy Yuan. I'm 41 years old. I come originally from Wuxi, a city with 6.5 million people in Jiangsu and close to Shanghai. I studied in China and also in Edinburgh, in UK. And I moved with my husband to Germany around 10 years ago. I work for Black Label.
Okay. So how long are you now working in our team?
Nearly 6 years.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and how long are you already dealing with Chinese clients in general?
Also since 2015. I mean, in generally, I'm working in international cooperation for my entire professional life, and I'm supporting Black Label and its Chinese clients since 2015.
Okay, so in the last 5 years, or even 5.5 years, we had a lot of changes in the Berlin real estate market, and a lot of stuff has happened. Not only talking about the Corona pandemic, which is still alive, but of course, prices went up here in Berlin, Germany. And we had a lot of, the rent ceiling, the rental freeze and all these things. So how are, generally speaking, the Chinese people seeing that?
I think Chinese people was in the German real estate market, especially in Berlin market, quite early. I think already since 2010, 11 or 12. I mean, quite early. So of course, they're aware the new changes in Berlin. And but for Chinese, and in general, there are two kinds of Chinese group who's buying properties in Germany or in Berlin, let's say. And one kind or one big part is for self-use, because China is getting, I mean, there are a lot of people living overseas in China. They come here for study and for work, and they prefer to have their own apartment, I mean, to buy apartment and then to rent. So the self-use, this part is already very strong. So it's continuously and also very stable, the demand for the Chinese people to buy the property here. And also the second part, let's say, is for investment. And which part is, and as I said, it's already since 2012, it's getting strong because Berlin is the new focus in Europe, and it's a growing like investment center for the Chinese. It will be the top choice for the Chinese to investment in Europe. So this part is also continually very strong. I mean, even with this mid-decker and like rental, new rental law, there's rental law. Sorry, this part.
I think you mean the rent freeze or the
rent freeze. Yes, if even with this rent freeze. And still, the Chinese see the new properties, the new built apartments as a very good investment target. And also continuously, they still think Berlin is growing. So the demand is still very high, but because of the Corona, and now it's of course difficult for clients to come here in person. And so this is the difficulty we have from last year. But as I said, and in between we have difficulties, but now the demand and the questions is still there. So we still have a very good feeling, and how to say how we still have a good outlook in this year. Yeah.
Okay. So you just mentioned the last year, the year 2020. Yeah. We had, of course, the big topic was the Corona pandemic, especially for Chinese buyers. So how did that happen? How did you manage the job during the Corona pandemic? What happened?
In general, we still have a very strong clients. It's from Germany, from Berlin, from Germany, and from Europe. So for this part, as I said, for the self-use, this demand is still very strong. So we keep having a lot of inquiries, and then we keep do cautiously viewings. So of course, we also successfully sold a lot of apartments last year. And this we will keep doing and to growing our local sales. And of course, for the Chinese who cannot come here in person, we will still show them what's happening in Berlin and how positively the price is still slightly increasing, and it's not going up because it's still very strong of economies in Berlin and in Germany here. So we will keep answering what's happening here, and of course also show the new projects we are having to convince them and to keep considering to buy the property here.
Okay, so you just mentioned a few topics. So what's the main reason for Chinese people to buy in Germany? Is it completely self-use or is it for investment?
There are two parts. I mean, for the self-use is quite strong because Chinese are used to buy the apartment to live rather than rent. I mean, for studies and for work, and because there's a lot of universities in Berlin, so there is a big amount of Chinese students here, and the Chinese parents would like them to have a kind of good living quality in Berlin. So of course they would looking for small apartments for the Chinese students, for the young students here. And also I have a growing amount of the Chinese clients who's moving from other cities, from other German cities to Berlin because of the work or other reasons. So since they are moved here, they're also looking for apartments for use for themselves, 1 or 2 rooms, or sometimes they're also looking for investment at the same time. If they have enough cash or enough money to do this. So they are very happy to do this because they also see a good future in Berlin and brought them their own fortune. And of course, they continuously would buy some properties for investment use.
Okay. You just have spoken about the investment properties and about the people who want to live in them, in these properties themselves. So they're 2 different buyers, typically speaking.
Yes.
How do they find you as a Chinese agent?
For the Chinese, it's very important the recommendation from the clients. So I have a lot of recommendation from existing clients, from the clients who had very great experience from Black Label. And another channel is, of course, is with the very important platform we have is WeChat. And we also have our Chinese website. And we also have local partners in China with whom we work together, such as the German Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. And this brings us a very good, trustworthy partner and brought us also the clients.
So you just mentioned that the Chinese people find us through various channels. So one is WeChat, the other one is the network you're having in China, and of course the German Chamber of Commerce. How do we work with the process? I mean, it's a lot of German peoples or international people who own property here in Germany that don't actually understand how someone from the other side of the world can buy a property here in Germany. How did this work?
The legal frame is the same as for the German buyers, but for a lot of Chinese, they need to check our company background in advance and also ask a lot of questions how to buy the properties in Germany. So building up the trust is very important. German buyers would focus more on the properties and care less about who assisted them to buy. But for Chinese, it's very important they understand, and we have this trust between us, and find a trustworthy partner who provides the professional services to answer their questions and also in their own language. And so this part, I mean, of course, compared to the German clients, it takes a little bit much, not much, but it takes more time than the German clients. But legally, the legal process is the same as a German buyer.
Okay, and how do we secure the German vendors and sellers, or maybe other sellers, international sellers, who own properties here in Germany that the Chinese buyers actually can pay the money and there's no problem?
And of course, we will check, because if I have this talk with my clients, one of the important tasks for me is also check about the financing situation, to check and do they have a financing plan, or do they already apply some mortgage in Germany with bank or some organization. So this is one of my very important tasks. So we will check in advance, and also will assist them to get the financing in Germany. So, and at the same time, so this is kind of our guarantee to the vendor.
Okay. So what from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges for you to sell to Chinese clients?
The challenges I think we have for everybody now is this corona pandemic, and I think it's quite difficult for the Chinese clients in China to fly in here, because property is a very special product, and a lot of people, they want to see themselves, to see which area and the surroundings, or the schools, or the city itself, because some people probably only have been in Berlin once or twice. So come here to have look in person, I think is still difficult in this year. But as I said, we will try our best to at least solve the first part of the legal process, to answer the questions, to show what we have, and use online viewing. And so as soon as there are some rules, there's some possibility they came here, then I think we can make the deal quick.
Okay, so what are the biggest advantages for sellers to sell to Chinese buyers?
I think the advantages is, no, because as I said, we take a lot of time to build up the trust and have this clients pool. So but if they make decision, they can make decision everything very quick. This is also advantage. And of course, for the new built apartments in general, Chinese liked a lot. So it's how to say, in general, they are Chinese welcome to buy. And then they will bring also more Chinese to buy. I think it's just a continuously long-term an interest in the German market. And how to say, the other point, and I have to say, because China is a huge prospering country, and also we have a huge amount of people overseas who also have a great growing interest to invest overseas properties. So all this together, it will have continuous effect and the demands. And I think it's how to say, it's if not focusing on the Chinese would mean to ignore one of the biggest markets in the world.
Okay, so you just mentioned a few topics. So can you just summarize a little bit again? So why is it important for a vendor to attract Chinese buyers? What are the three main reasons? Because they also could argue, well, I'm selling it to my neighbor, I'm selling it to a German buyer, you know, that's much easier, or at least they think it's much easier. I'm not saying it is. So what's from your perspective, what is the main reason? What's the biggest advantage to sell to a Chinese buyer?
The biggest advantage is I'm not talking about the single apartment. I think for the single apartment, maybe it's nearly equal. Somehow legally, because we also represent to the seller, to the vendor. So it's also our duty, which I understand. But if you have a project or several buildings, and then I think for the Chinese who, because we have a pool of Chinese who is, as I said, we check the financing in advance. And if they make quick decision, then I think then we can sell several apartments or more, and at the same time, I mean, how to say, it's like a continuously a market there, and which will buy property here. So just for the vendors, I think it's important you keep having these markets. I mean, to support you, because I know it is a difficult time for everybody. So even for German clients, sometimes it's also not so easy. So I think it's really a good choice, at least you have. And of course, the final decision is from the vendor. But at least we have this big market in there, and continuously and have this interest to invest here. And with our service and the guaranteed financing to buy the properties. So I think this is altogether is the advantage we are having here.
Yeah, I think from my experience working now with you for over 5 years, I have to say one of the biggest advantages for seller is of course that the Chinese buyer usually have more cash because they always are used to have a higher deposit. What I have to say when I'm checking with the German buyers is that they usually want a 90% finance, 100% finance, even more. And the Chinese people, when they decide to buy property in Germany, they usually have minimum 20 to 30% deposit because they already know it's harder for them to get a German mortgage. They would pay higher interest to get the same property. And there are not so many lenders who give them a mortgage in general terms. So I think when we sell to Chinese people, the whole transaction is much faster because we have already higher deposit and the whole, how to say, the transaction itself, the management of the transaction. Of course, your job is to manage the Chinese buyer and it's very tough, but in terms of the legal side, it's very well structured and the finance usually gets approved much faster than with German buyers because they don't need such a high mortgage, especially when it comes to investment properties and the Chinese buyers are overseas, so they're not in Germany and they're buying for investment purpose. Yeah, so that's also a big advantage. I have to say, from the last 5 years, that's what we've seen. Another big advantage, I have to say, we've been working with a lot of developers here in Germany, not only in Berlin, also in Leipzig and other cities. And so the Chinese people, when they make a decision, they are very fast and then they move on with their life. So they don't come back and renegotiate. So they are very straightforward. But when it's very difficult to make them to make a decision, that's crazy tough. But once they make a decision, they stick to it and they do it. Yeah. So that's also a big advantage from my perspective. Yeah. Can you share this?
Yes, I mean, of course, I think all what you said is correct as with the financing, which I also didn't mention, is because for a lot of Chinese, they're aware. Some Chinese, if they live in China, they're difficult to have this mortgage from the local German bank. So they will ask the other organization to have the mortgage, in which this will be around 60 to 70% of the mortgage they could have in maximum. Yeah. So they will prepare enough cash to pay the property and also including the extra transition fees. So they are prepared well in general.
Yeah. So then there is another big topic, which a lot of sellers always contact us. They always think the Chinese buyers are paying more than the German buyers. And I have to say that's not true. They will not pay more. They just see the market differently. So they value properties differently than the German buyers. So for instance, a new build for an international client, especially for an Asian or Chinese client, is worth much more than for a German buyer because they are happy to live in a used property or an existing apartment and to pay maybe 30-40% less for the same apartment. Again, that's something Chinese people are used to because where they come from, the new builds are much more important than existing apartments because of the quality of build and because of the history of the country. I think that's also different. Is this correct, Nancy?
Yes, I think so. They prefer the new apartments because it's brand new, also have this more guarantee of the quality, which is very important.
How does it work with renting out? I mean, we have Chinese buyers who are here to invest and they will rent out apartments. How does this work?
And this is also very important for the Chinese clients who is doing investment here. And because Black Label offers this rental service, and so far all my clients are very happy with our service. And because it's a trustworthy service, we can help them taking care the apartment, to find the tenant, and to negotiate in between. And for the buyers, what they have is only to check their account on time and to get their money. So it's the reason they are very happy with our service and renting service.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. How do you see this year, 2021?
This is a good question. I think for the starting now with this lockdown, the beginning of 2021 will be also difficult. But soon China, we will enter a Chinese New Year with Ox, and we hope that it's bring more power and richness in the new year.
Okay. How is the economy in China at the moment?
economies is stable and also very doing well because they're very strict control with corona. So in big cities, if you have only few cases under 10, so that they will already have alert and they will do a very big massive tests for the area. So in general, it's very good control. People walking on the street and shopping is no problem. Yeah, at the moment.
Okay, so how do you see the forecast in the next, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years?
I think I mean, for the economy, I'm not the expert, but so far it's stable, and I think it looks still very good. It's because not only in China, there's also China living overseas in North America, in Australia, and they are also thinking about invest in Europe. And we also have the clients because of the Brexit and this British Chinese, they're also thinking of to buying properties in Berlin. So overall, not in China, we have a group of the Chinese from the whole world, and if they have any interest to focusing in the Europe, I mean, the Berlin is one of the choices, and yeah, so I think it looks good so far.
So thank you, Nancy, for tonight, sharing all your wisdom with us about Chinese buyers here in Germany, especially, of course, Berlin. And yeah, it's the 19th Berlin Real Estate Talk, and we were happy to have you here with us. If you are interested, please feel free to contact Nancy Yuan. You'll find her contact details directly on our website, under the team website. And Happy New Year for everyone who's celebrating the Chinese New Year, and Happy Spring Festival, everyone who's celebrating the festival. Thank you and bye-bye.